let's talk a little bit about the workforce issue. A sense that people are banding together to say, look, we got to advocate for our own work conditions, not just for the wellness of the profession, but also for the safety of the patients. Can you tell us about some of the walkouts and labor movements that are cropping up?
Yeah. The reason why this got so much traction was really it all goes back to the Kansas City walkouts. And for those of your viewers that haven't followed this at all, that was the flashpoint that really caught the media's attention and helped the pharmacy community kind of coalesce around the idea that we need to do something for patient safety and for quality of life and working conditions within retail pharmacy. The Kansas City CVS Target channel is where this all started. So there were organizers within the CVS Target channel in the Kansas City metro area that decided they were going to do something about the working conditions. What happened is technicians were only given 20 hours a week. So each of these stores, even though they're open 64 hours a week, they were only given 20 technician hours total, which means that's a pharmacist by themselves the bulk of the time that this store is open. And because CVS is considered very low volume, they're not CVS's priority. If it was up to CVS, I think they'd probably close half of them or more. The problem is that even if you're considered low volume, 100 prescriptions, 150 prescriptions a day, you still have all those vaccinations. And that's one pharmacist. All they have to do is get stuck with an insurance issue, get stuck with a patient, not stuck with a patient, but need to devote 15 minutes to this patient who's new to, like, someone who's getting released at post MI or something like that, where they have a bunch of new medications and they need to be counseled about it. So that alone backs up the pharmacist to the point where it's unsustainable. You can't have one person doing that. So they should never be left alone. But in a lot of states, it doesn't matter. As long as there's a pharmacist there, they'll stay open. So it's a bunch of pharmacists working by themselves. So they decided to come together and say, we are going to walk out because we need help. And the two organizers got 24 stores in the Kansas City metro area to decide to walk out. And it kind of got a response from CVS corporate that most pharmacists and technicians were frankly surprised by. I mean, they flew out Prem Shah, the director of pharmacy, and their head of HR actually to Kansas City to sit down with these pharmacists and talk to them and see what they can do to get them to go back to work and to make working conditions better. And they actually got a few concessions from CVS. So the problem is, like with pages on the internet now, CVS wanted to play this off like it was very specific to this market. And I put everything out onto my page immediately, and so did all these other networks of people that we work with for pharmacy pages and healthcare pages. And people were able to combat that rhetoric that this was just localized to the Kansas City market. People were coming to the page and saying, no, this is happening in Texas, this is happening in Connecticut, this is happening everywhere. So it's not specific. This is widespread, not just CVS, but across all retail pharmacy chains. This is the standard of care, and it's unsafe for patients. More media attention build. There was lots of people. So my job at that point was just really to help put the information out there. I was utilizing all of my connections to make sure that it was going everywhere. And then it just built to Pharmageddon, where I was more of the main organizers of this, trying to say this is across every platform. It's not CVS specific. It's not Walgreens. We're going to do this together. And the end game for me was always to try and unionize. I'd been raising money for the last 2 years to try and explore the idea of national unionization, or an organization that would really be focused on bettering pharmacists' working conditions and technician working conditions. Raised about $23,000 before Kansas City. And that money had been sitting there for such a long time. The organizers reached out to me and said, some of these technicians here want to support us, but they don't want to lose out on 8 hours since they're only getting 20 hours a week, some of them to begin with. So I said, why don't we pay them wage assistance from this money that I raised? And these technicians were being super honest. And that's why I was why the focus of my platform has been better pay for technicians to keep the good ones, because that's really the key component here. And they were being so honest. They're saying like, I've only worked 6 hours this week, but I make $16.50 an hour. And I said, well, you're getting a living wage today at $25 an hour, and we're paying you for 8 hours. As soon as we started doing that, we went from $23,000 raised to $64,000 raised in the matter of a month and a half. And we paid out wage assistance to over 175 technicians now all over the country during Operation Spotlight and during the Kansas City walkouts.
And so this is, just to be clear, it's kind of informal, but in this walkout wasn't a union thing. It's almost like it's the power of the collective action.
Yeah.
Without even the
organization. The fancy word for it, or the historic word for it, is a wildcat strike. So essentially, you're trying to do something that normally happens under the protection of unionization. Yeah. And that's why, Walgreens and CVS were trying to play it off like it was very little impact to our stores. Well, these were people that were risking their job to say that. Mm-hmm. So the fact that over 200 people participated and 390 shifts were canceled during a 3-day walkout, that was from Pharmageddon. Those were our rough statistics from this exit survey that everybody didn't participate in. That's still a lot of people. We had a poll earlier, 4,500 people wanted to participate, but a lot of them backed out because of the concerns about losing their job.
Which is pretty impressive. And I think that, and then another thing that I just think is interesting is that it would be very easy to sort of say, oh, this is one bad apple, but you have the bigger picture in mind. I think often of like, I feel like every other week there's an airline that gets named and shamed for some terrible behavior, and everyone says we're going to boycott this airline, and then and 2 weeks later is the next one, and so eventually it's like all evened out, so everyone's terrible. And so it's sort of the same thing here. It's like, you're not going to say, oh, it's just this one bad apple. It's a canary in the coal mine for the system that needs to be fixed. And I think that's I think that the experience is that there's momentum there. I mean, do you think that what is happening? Is there a movement for unionization?
Yeah. So after that, my end game was always to try and have some kind of national push for unionization, because these stories, that is the cycle. We have media attention on it. There's been lots over the years, but then Walgreens and CVS, companies like that, are big enough to wait it out, and the public forgets about it. The outcry goes away, and we all do business as usual. And so I've been talking to unions for a while, UFCW, Kaiser, and IAM Healthcare. So the director of IAM Healthcare and I have been in contact for over 2 years since I started raising money for unionization. After all of we had lots of media attention. I was on the television a couple times. Because of that, IAM was ready to take the plunge and say, okay, this is not just a group of a few people that have some followers on the internet. These people are serious about change. So that they decided to put some resources to it and create the Pharmacists Guild, which is under the umbrella of IAM Healthcare, which is under the umbrella of IAM. IAM, I should say, for people who don't know, it's the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers.
There are organizations that sort of oversee anything. Like we have emergency physician groups and there's pharmacy groups. What's their take? And sort of from I was going to say big pharma, but that's not what I mean. What I mean is from the governing bodies that sort of look after the profession. How do they feel about this movement?
So APHA took a great stance during the walkouts in saying that they support pharmacists' effort to make practicing in these environments safer. They haven't really come out formally and said anything about the Pharmacists Guild. We just launched last week, and basically all we're doing now is collecting people who are interested in exploring unionization, but also there's going to be an organizational component to this that seeks to have regulatory reform and a legislative component to it to try and demand change through legislation. I can say that the response from the pharmacist community has been huge. 30,000 people went to the site in the first few hours it launched. It actually crashed the page on the first day, and it briefly crashed the page for about 15 minutes on the second day. I'm not at liberty right now from IAM to tell you exactly how many people have signed up, but the numbers are overwhelming, and there's a lot of work to do. They actually allocated even more resources towards this. So they've made a big investment. Attorneys, economists, communications department. There's a lot of work to be done, but this is the biggest response they've had to try and organize anywhere before. So they're excited about it, as am I. What it looks like in the future and what response we get from our national organizations like NCPA and APHA is yet to be seen. I have a great relationship with APHA right now. Dr. Hogue is doing some great things, and he's taken a really bold response in response to all of this, and really taking the side of pharmacists, even if it would, they are not, I wouldn't say beholden, but they have big corporate sponsorships from companies like Walgreens and CVS. So to do something that's really siding with the pharmacists, I have to applaud.